Cool. Well, thanks for being here, David.
Yeah.
We got David Forney with Mobile Tax Filer. What is the technical name of the business?
Mobile Tax. All about simplicity. The only reason why my website is Mobile Tax Filer is because mobile tax is taken.
Yeah.
I check it like every month.
Oh, do you?
To see if it becomes available.
Yeah. What would be the price that you'd be willing to pay for that website?
I think it's going to depend on my revenue.
Okay,
right?
sure.
Like if I get to the point where I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars in a tax season, then I'd be willing to spend a little bit more for something like that.
Yeah, I've almost bought a few different. I used to, when I would think of a good idea, I would go and buy the URL and do that. I remember when Netflix came out, they were called something else. It was like SilverQuest or something like that. Right the first time Netflix came out with where they would do the home delivery.
Yeah,
I remember I went and like searched that name and the website wasn't taken. And so I bought that. It was like SilverQuest, I think. And I bought silverquest.com. And no one ever.
They never.
Then they switched it to Netflix right after that, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be my payday."
Right.
The big .com, Matthew's big .com boom is coming. So, well, David, thanks so much for being here. It is tax season right now. This episode might come out just after tax season, but I'm sure you're very, very busy. So why don't you give just your elevator pitch of what you do, what makes your business unique, because it is very unique. You're very different than the other tax filers out there.
Yeah, I try to be. So I tell people that I'm a mobile tax filer, and what that means is that I will go to your house, I'll scan all your documents, I prep the return at my home office, and then I upload it to a member portal. And the benefit to this is my primary market is busy parents. So those busy parents, yes, sir. As busy parents with kids, we have things going on in the afternoon and the evenings. We got to make dinner. We got to go to the grocery store. We got to run kids around on the weekends. We got birthday parties. We got events we need to go to. Yeah. And so for me, the idea of going to a traditional big box shop like H&R Block or Liberty Tax and sitting there watching people type in the data, waiting, for it to get done, especially like springtime in Colorado. Nobody wants to do that. No. And so
I see those people, like you go to Walmart and you see the people like sitting in the little cube and I'm just like, that just looks miserable.
Yeah, it's so weird. So it's really a convenience-based tax preparation service. We want to make it easy for busy parents to get something that's usually a very stressful process done quickly, easily. And so that's the whole idea behind what I'm doing right now. And
you do my taxes, and you did ours all virtually. Is that something that you want to do more of? Is that just something you offered to me? Or is that an option for people?
I only offer to existing clients.
Okay.
So for any time I have new clients, and this is weird, I've had coaches say that I could get away from this, but for me, taxes is so much about relationship. People are trusting me with financial information that they don't tell their closest friends or their family. And so to at least meet them in person first time so that they could put a real face with the name and, pick up more than what we would pick up in a Zoom.
Yeah.
Right? All of those, body movements and body language it's really important to me to just meet people for the first time. So that's the way I do it. After that, if they want to go 100% virtual, fine by me. Okay. It's easier for me for sure. Yeah. And it's easier for them too.
It's easier for us for sure. It's just like scanning documents is so easy now. There's a million different apps on your phone and that'll just do it for you and just scan them, upload them to your portal, which is really easy and user friendly. And you just have like a great system. So it just makes it easier on our end because if it's for busy parents, it's like, I don't want to go to a box store, but I also don't necessarily have time to have you come over and sit for it. It's like, I just need to do it in the margins sometimes.
So I love that you mentioned that because I actually had a mentor talk to me during right leading up to tax season. And he was talking to me about my process. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I meet with them at the beginning and then I meet with them at the end to do the review. And he goes, do you really need to meet with them twice? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I want to make sure that I have all the documents, and then I also want to make sure that they understand their tax return. And he said, well, David, I'm sure you're a cool guy, but I don't talk to my mother-in-law twice a year. I sure don't want to talk to my tax guy twice a year. And especially with the people that you're working with, they're busy. So consider doing, a Loom review or just sending it and saying, hey, review it. If you have questions, let me know. If not, approve it.
And every client is going to be different. They're all going to want a different type of touch. Like Loom review would be fine, but I have questions and I want, that instant feedback for me is really nice. And because you're doing my business and my personal. So I have a lot of questions because I don't know a lot about this stuff. So getting that instant feedback is nice, but there's a lot of people who probably have simpler ones that you can just do a Loom review and they're content with that.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're so flexible and you can do it however your clients want is probably a huge benefit.
Yeah, the numbers so far are about 90%. Actually, more like 95% of my clients watch that Loom review and have zero questions afterwards.
Dude. Well, that means you're doing a really good job then.
Yeah, and it saved me hours.
Yeah.
That's more time that I could spend onboarding additional clients. So
or just with your family or playing pool or whatever it is that you want to do. Yeah. So, yeah, man, we'll get there. Well, I always love on our podcast, I always love to kind of go back in time and figure out how you got here, how you got to this point. So you grew up in California, Bakersfield, California. You had a very interesting life. Do you want to just give us the couple-minute version of that?
Yeah, I mean, how far back do we want to go?
Oh, just whatever. Well, you can start when you moved here. You moved here when you were like 12 or 13 to Colorado?
Yep. I'd say that my first real experience in Colorado wasn't great. So I have 3 brothers, 2 older, 1 younger.
Okay.
My parents were divorced, so I was a single mother.
Oh, wow.
And so hand-me-downs. Hand-me-downs were what we were, you know, and we were from California. So I show up here in Colorado and I go, it's my first week of school and I'm wearing a Raiders shirt. That is not allowed here. And I had no idea. So I am not a Broncos fan, to say the least,
Cowboys fan, so you're in good company.
Right. So, but Colorado as a whole was wonderful. We have all the seasons. Unfortunately, though, about that time of my life, my mom became pretty distant and was absent a lot. So she just kind of left us like the wolf pack to fend for ourselves.
Bunch of teenage boys.
Yeah, teenage boys just doing whatever they wanted to do, you know? And so I think my last week of middle school, I got expelled. And they're like, we're just going to graduate you. Just get out of here, And high school didn't go well for me at all.
Yeah. You said you didn't even pass ninth grade or something?
Yeah, never passed freshman year of high school.
Wow.
And I was just, I had no interest, man.
Right.
Like, I couldn't get it, and so
I was the same way. I didn't have interest in school at all, but I had parents that were pretty involved, and so they just forced me to graduate. If you don't have that, I probably would have been in the same situation.
Yeah, I ended up actually moving out of my mom's house at the age of 16. Okay. So I moved in with some friends and just started doing my own thing. I actually got a job immediately. So I've been a hard worker my whole life, but
you're obviously very smart. It wasn't a smarts thing. It was just not interested in it.
Yeah, I think there's a big lack of structure there, and. So 18, I got in a lot of trouble, and I ended up having to move out of Colorado Springs and move in with my dad in Castle Rock. So I said I got Fresh Prince of Bel-Air out of Castle,
That's good.
Castle Rock. And
not quite as long of a taxi drive, but
but it was weird how much just not being around those same friends and not being around that same cadence that you're into made a huge impact in my life and what I was doing. And my dad's like, you got to quit smoking. You got to go to college. You got to at least get your GED if you don't want to go to college. And so I got my GED fairly easily, which I was like, wow, that was way more efficient than going to high school for 4 years. Immediately,
80% of high school is sports and socializing. So
right. And so then I went to college, and it took me a long time to graduate college. It was kind of a start and stop type of deal. Like I'd go for a little bit.
And you went here in Denver? Metro State?
Yeah, I started at Arapahoe Community College, and then I went to Metro State after that, and really took well to all the math classes, math and accounting, really just understood it.
Yeah. At what point in your journey through college did you settle on accounting and feel confident about that?
Pretty much as soon as I started, because I took the test to get in, and I scored extremely high on the math, extremely low on the written and writing portion of the exams. So I knew that I was going to be an entry level on that. And I really wanted to do something that I enjoyed, and the math just stuck. Like those were the classes I was actually interested in going to. Cool. But I didn't know I was going to do tax until my senior year. So senior year, I took a VITA class.
And what year is this?
2015.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I graduated, was 2015. And this VITA class is a voluntary income tax preparation. And I would show up to this place and do taxes for low income and military families. And they were so thankful for me being there and helping them out. And I took really well to it because I was working for Comcast at the time as a customer service representative. So they taught me sales. Yeah. Right. I was working in one of the stores, so I was used to having
not like
someone in front of me.
the greatest job, but you will learn so much about yourself, and you'll learn a lot of job skills.
Absolutely. And just relating to people and dealing with irate customers on a regular basis and realizing
just taking that in and just like, okay,
it's not you.
Yeah.
It's the subject. You know, like people aren't mad at me. They're frustrated with taxes in general. And being able to separate yourself from that really helps with that customer service. So while I was excelling, you know, the other accountants with our accountant personality weren't as, you know, I would say outgoing or extroverted to create that
We
relationship.
all know what you mean. Yeah. So it goes without saying.
I knew then, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. And I immediately got a job at Liberty Tax. And it was good. I was helping people, but it just wasn't a great fit for me.
Yeah.
Overall.
You probably learned a lot, though.
Yeah. No, not really. Because they had me at an entry level. So I wasn't really doing anything complicated. A lot of it I had already learned in college.
Okay.
So the only thing they really taught was, you know, what are the updates? What are the updates for this year that you have to know about and relate to people? I learned a lot about how not to do things.
Okay.
Like how I didn't want to do things.
What you didn't want to do.
Yeah, exactly. I learned that, you know, having people come in and sit in the lobby while their kids are sitting there for an hour isn't a good thing. I learned that having, you know, 3 desks in an open space where you're talking about personal information isn't good.
Oh, so there's no privacy either.
There wasn't. You know, the only room was the franchise owner's office was separate. But she didn't always have clients in there. Right. You know, she was, you know, knocking out tax returns and doing things to run the business. So everybody was kind of within earshot of each other, which I didn't like.
Yeah. No, you would need a level of privacy, you know.
Yeah.
When you're discussing people's personal finances.
Some people will say, hey, I could just meet you at Starbucks. I'm like, no. We don't do that. Like, I have a co-work space, so if you don't want to meet at your house, we could meet at the co-work space.
Oh, good.
But yeah, there's just a lot of things that I learned, like, this could be done so much better.
Yeah, and that was sort of the impetus for you starting Mobile Tax, right?
Right.
You listed, when we talked to you, you listed 3 reasons, and I thought they were great. It was like the year-around expenses. You just noticed a lot of inefficiencies that you thought you could solve with your own business.
Right.
So like the year-round, can you talk about that and those 3 things maybe? Like the year-round expenses, the privacy, and then like the back and forth of people having to drive back to their house to get paperwork, which seems insane. And then, there's those clients just like sitting there while you're inputting things, just watching you data entry for an hour.
Right. Yeah. The first one was I would think the first revelation that I had. Being an accountant, I understand the difference between fixed costs and variable costs. So the rent at the office where we prepare taxes was year round. Utilities year round, trash, everything that came with it is all fixed costs. But the income is variable. Most of the income is during tax season. There is some other income that could be gained throughout the year, but if you look at it on, you know, like a graph, you'll see that there's a huge spike. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm mobile and my vehicle is my office, I'm only going to use it when it's busy. And when it's slow, I'm not using it. So I'm not incurring the expense of gas and maintenance and everything else. So I wanted my costs to track more with my revenue. Okay. So variable cost, variable revenue instead of having a fixed cost and then having to kind of shift this revenue to cover expenses throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the first idea. And then the second one was, how do we make this more convenient for people? You know, when I was working at Liberty Tax, if someone didn't have a document, they would have to go home and get it because I'm not going to let them on my computer. Like I have a ton of people's personal information on there, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to let them get in there and start typing in there. So they had to go home.
And they probably just have a physical copy of it anyways. I mean, sometimes.
Yeah, most likely. And so, I mean, they might be able to get it online, but the policy was go home, get it, make another appointment. And I figured if I'm there at their house, they could just grab it.
Right. We run upstairs. Yeah.
Let's eliminate that whole process right there. And then obviously the privacy that I've talked about. We could talk about anything that they want to talk about in the comfort of their own home. Like it creates this weird dynamic when you go into a tax shop and now like you're on the defensive opposed to if I come to your house, I'm on your home turf.
It's kind of neutral. Yeah.
And now you can kind of dictate like how things are going, right? Like if you get
is that harder for you then?
Of course. Yeah, of course. But that's the whole I think that's what more businesses need to do. Like I'm driving to your house in the snow so you don't have to. Does that make it harder on me? Absolutely. But I'm prepared for it. Yeah. I'm going to your house to talk about a difficult situation. Does that mean that I have to, kind of maybe tiptoe and use more canter and just be, more strategic about the things I say? Absolutely. But that's something that I'm willing to take on to make it easier for my clients. And I don't feel like a lot of the tax industry does that. They're like,
I've never heard of that before.
Hey, if you come to us, you bring us your paperwork. We'll let you know when you're ready. You sit in the lobby. Or if you're going to a CPA, bring in your paperwork, drop it off. It'll be ready when I tell you it's ready,
right.
And it will cost what I tell you it's going to cost.
Yep.
I feel like when we look outside of the tax industry, we can see a lot of companies doing that, especially after COVID.
COVID changed so much.
Right? We think of like DoorDash, we think of, Instacart, Amazon. My neighbor ordered batteries from Amazon. He was a little ashamed about it, but he didn't want to go to the store, And so,
that's way worse stuff.
Right. So, these companies that are doing really well are taking that pain on themselves so that the clients don't have to take it. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this.
So did you just come up with this model on your own, or did you see someone else doing it? Or was this like you just kind of came while you're sitting there at Liberty Tax, just thinking about it, you're just like, I could do this so much, and you just came up with a whole
I just came up with it. And the weird thing was I came up with it. So mobile tax has actually been around since 2018.
Okay.
So I knew that that's what kind of the model that I was going to do before a lot of this, to your door stuff started blowing up, and I think that COVID was the catalyst for me to say, you know what, look at how much all of these people appreciate this. Like I can do this, I can actually make this a business. And at the time I was working for Comcast full time. Good job, benefits. I was working in the accounting department, so I moved from sales into the divisional office, so I had a path for growth and I had a great team around me. But I was just thinking, man, with the amount of people that are interested in the service that I'm providing and with the way I'm growing, like I just saw so much more opportunity by just jumping into the deep end.
Was there a moment that you realized that you could do this full time and you could leave the corporate world?
Yeah. So when I was initially trying to get clients and build a business before I went full time, I would tell people I do taxes, and they would always ask, "Are you a CPA?" And I would say, "No, I'm a tax preparer."
Yeah.
And I would get this, "Oh, okay." So it created this inferiority complex. Like I'm not good enough, to be the CPA. Like I'm just this lonely little tax preparer. And so I decided I was going to change that, and I was going to take the enrolled agent exam. An enrolled agent essentially would give me the power to represent people for any matters in front of the IRS.
Okay.
So I could do tax resolution. I could do, amendments. I could do anything.
Very similar to a CPA then.
CPAs do a lot more as far as, audits and, corporate reporting reviews and things that I'm not so interested in. Okay. The enrolled agent is very specific to tax.
Okay.
And I took this exam, and shortly after I took the exam, I joined a mastermind group. and all of these guys were talking about how they grow their business and what they're doing. And I knew then that I was going to quit my job. I had a good tax season that year. So I finally started marketing my business because I'm like, I'm an enrolled agent. I could tell everybody that I'm doing taxes, opposed to, I'm not sure I should take that on because I'm just a tax preparer. So that's the moment when I really realized that I was going to kind of take off as far as leaving the corporate gig and do this full time.
Cool.
The funny thing is, though, now I tell people, no, I'm not a CPA. I'm an enrolled agent. And I still get that same, oh, okay. All I know is you're not a CPA, but now I don't care.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's the difference.
At some point, you have to not care anymore. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm doing exactly, and having a successful business probably gives you the confidence to say, like, I don't need that. I don't need that to have a successful business.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily consider myself successful yet. You know, I'm 2 years in. It's growing significantly. But I'm also incurring a lot of costs because I'm growing and I need help. And so I'm trying to find that right balance.
Yeah.
And most people say that you got to give a business 3 years really before it solidifies.
Yeah.
And I'm in year 2 right now of being full time.
Okay.
So I don't quite, but I'm a bit harder on myself.
Yeah, I can see that.
I have much bigger expectations, which is my wife actually works with me. And it's great because she's always bringing me back down to reality. She's like, yeah, but look at your growth. Like, look at how busy you are. Look how many appointments you have. So she's always giving me that positive side. And I'm like,
you need that.
We're not quite there yet, though. And I don't think I ever will be. Right?
You need a hype man, right?
Right.
Spouses, the best spouses are the hype men.
Yeah. So. And I agree. I think that if you're an achiever and you have a dream, and you have an idea of what could be, you're never really going to be satisfied.
Yeah.
So to have somebody that can say, hey, let's enjoy the moment as we're going through it is crucial, because we could forever spin our wheels chasing the dream.
Yeah. Knowing exactly what you want your business to look like is so important, I feel like, because I get wrapped up in growing the business, and sometimes growing isn't what I want. You know what I mean? And there's seasons of life, right? And it's like, for me with little kids at the house, like I don't necessarily want to be any bigger than I am now because I enjoy the role that I have in my business and I enjoy the flexibility that I have. It's like, so making more money is not my goal right now.
Right.
Maintaining and like taking care of my clients is my goal. So it's like, I'm not trying to make more money. I'm not trying to hire more people. I'm trying to buy out my time so I can spend more time with my family and pick the projects that I want to do. And like you said this too about like saying no to things, and maybe you could touch on that, but like being able to say no to something in your business is so healthy for your business and for you. Being in a place where you're like, I can say no to that because I'm not in a scarcity mindset. I don't need that money. It's not what I want to be doing more of in the future. And so like you can just say no to that and be okay with that and understand that like saying no to that is going to allow you to say yes to the next thing that comes across that is an obvious yes.
Yes.
So
yeah, that's something that is very difficult for me right now. So I have several friends that have been self-employed for many years, and they talk about how they have a lot of these clients that aren't a good fit for them, but they took them on initially because they were just starting out and they wanted the money. So I had been doing a lot of kind of reading of books and business training and talking about really identifying that ideal client. And if it's not an absolute yes, then it's a no. I still kind of play in the gray area every now and then, but I would say for the majority, I'm pretty good about saying, hey, I don't do that, and here are some people that you can call that might be able to do that. And I tell people all the time, for every one person that I say no to, I can say yes to 3 of my ideal clients because I have a system that fits those clients. I'm efficient.
Way more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I could relate to them better too. It's hard for me to relate to somebody that, I mentioned my clients, married, filing joint, they've got dependents, they're busy. That's me. That's me and all my friends, you know? So I understand the struggle. I can't really do that for somebody that owns, a corporation for 10 years and, is close to thinking about selling the corporation. I've never interacted with anybody like that.
It's a different world.
Yeah. So, I just, and plus I have so much fun working with these clients. They really only want to talk to me once a year, so that gives me the summer to spend time with my family and do the things I want to do and travel. And so that's the ultimate goal, is to help as many people as I could possibly help. And the way I can do that is by keeping it simple. Hey, if you've got something weird going on with your tax return that's going to take me 3 times as long, you're really better off going somewhere else, because I need to be able to help as many people as possible. I can only do that by, managing that time, and putting people through an efficient system.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've niched down perfectly.
Yeah.
It's hard to do because it's hard to say no, and you feel like you're limiting your opportunities,
right.
But you're really not. You're really not. By niching down, you're not limiting your opportunities. You're actually increasing them, I feel like.
You absolutely are.
Because you can take on more clients. Absolutely. You can do more.
You can do more, and you can provide better service to those clients that you do take on.
Yes.
Because they're like,
It'd be a
this
better
was
experience.
built for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, this was built for you. So they enjoy it a lot more as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're kind of building systems right now. We're redoing our website, and we're shifting from like project based, where we just do like kind of 1 or 2 projects for a client per, you know what I mean? And just whenever they come to us and they want something, and we're shifting to doing more like retainer work for clients, where we're creating kind of micro content for them every month. And it's a whole new system. And so we're kind of going through the pains of like, I have basically 2 retainer clients right now. And they understand that like there's some bumps in the road, there's some inefficiencies, but they're cool with like working with me and like figuring it out. I gave them a good deal, and they're kind of giving me feedback about the process and stuff like that, because we're building our systems right now. But that's what we want to move into the direction of our business. And so, but man, having those like ideal clients that fit into your mold and fit into your systems is so important. So speaking of helping people, I want to just take a few minutes and talk about what everyone wants to talk about with their tax filer, which is like, what are the biggest questions that you get from every person? Everyone wants to know like how to reduce their tax liability, how long do they need to hold on to their forms, all that type of stuff. Like, what are like some quick tips that you tell people all the time?
The biggest question I'm getting right now is, are you taking on new clients?
Okay.
Which I find is...
And the answer is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Always. And I don't get these... the CPAs that are out there and the tax shops that are out there that are saying we're not taking on new clients seems weird to me. Like they haven't figured out how to scale. Like there's something wrong with the system in which, they can't take on additional clients. So for me, as long as you're my ideal client, I'm taking on new clients. Absolutely. Because we could file extensions. And I would say that's one thing that I'd really like to tell people, is that extensions are not a bad thing. The window for tax preparation is so small. So W-2 employee only, right?
Yeah.
They don't even get their documents until the end of January.
Early February.
Yeah. And so they got February, March, and half of April, 2.5 months. Okay, so now if you
10 weeks, 11 weeks.
Right. And
that's crazy.
Now if you have a brokerage account, which everybody should have some sort of investment. Like if I don't see that on line
you don't
item,
get those till like mid-February, right?
You don't get them until mid-February, or in some cases March, early March. If you have a partnership or an S corp, those aren't due until mid-March. And so if they file mid-March and they get your K-1, now you have a month to get your taxes done.
Yeah.
And
just like right now, which is why I'm so surprised that you're here. But go on.
Yeah. So, this window is getting tighter and tighter. So by filing an extension, it doesn't give you more time to pay, but it does give you more time to file. Colorado actually does an automatic extension. So you automatically have until October to file your Colorado.
Oh, really?
But
okay.
if you're filing your
Colorado State ones,
yeah, your Colorado State. But if you're filing your federal, you might as well just submit Colorado at the same time. So that's something that...
How helpful is that for you when people extend?
I would like to say that it eliminates that busyness, but it really doesn't, because then that busyness just happens in October.
Okay.
Like people don't call me in May, like, hey, we just filed an extension, let's get it going.
Gotcha. So you have sort of a second rush in October.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I have. There's 2 real peaks. So
what is that extension deadline?
It's 6 months.
October 15th?
15th, yeah.
Okay.
So depending if it falls on a weekend, I don't know exactly where it falls.
Gotcha.
There's one other issue that I really wanted to talk about. Like if I could get this out to people and they kind of understand it a little bit better, it would be huge. And I'm thinking about doing some videos on this, so maybe we could work together at some point.
Or we'll just clip this and give it to them, so you can just go.
Well, we got to get some visual aids in there,
Okay,
because that
all right.
always helps people. But when you are a married filing joint and you have dual income, which is about 90% of my clientele, and you're filling out your W-4 as married filing joint, what happens is those people usually owe at the end of the year.
Yeah, that happened to us last year. We talked about this.
Yeah, and they don't know why. And they're like, I filled it out. I'm married filing joint. I've got one dependent. And now at the end of the year, I owe money. Like, what's going on here? And what happens in those situations is your standard deduction is being accounted for by both payroll companies. Not only that, but your income level is not known by the other payroll company.
Right.
And so they don't know about that income, so they're assuming much less income than what you're actually getting. Now, there is on the W-4 a very complicated, questionnaire that you can go through to figure out, okay, what's my spouse's wage, what's my wage. The problem with that, in my opinion, is that it has to be updated every time there's a raise, right? So like, hey, I got a promotion at work and now I'm making an extra $20,000 a year. Well, now you have to go in and change your W-4 again. So I would say that really understanding how those tax tables work is crucial for married filing joint people. And just simply changing that in a way to where you're going to be closer to break even relieves a ton of the stress around the tax preparation. It becomes super easy at the end of the year.
Yeah, which is what I have to go do. I think a shortcut was just adding, do you want to take out extra? And I was like, yeah. And I just threw like $600 in there. I was like, that should probably get us pretty close.
Yeah. So
and we'll see. We'll cross our fingers,
That works. But once again, it doesn't scale with your paycheck.
Yeah.
Right. So 2 years down the road, if you're still having $600 taken out, but you're making a lot more money, now that's such a smaller percentage.
Yeah.
So I would say that working with the tax preparer to kind of figure out how to fill that out properly is going to relieve a lot of stress in tax preparation.
I will email you after April 15th about that. Then.
All right, sounds good.
I wanted to hear, are there any just crazy stories? Because everyone wants to reduce their tax liability. And like, even as a business owner, you get caught up in that. I'm like, I think that's a write-off. Yeah, I think so. Like, have you had any crazy stories of people trying to write ridiculous things off or make crazy claims to save taxes?
That's usually done more with small businesses. And, I tell people I don't operate within the gray because I feel like it's more risk than necessary. What I find is people will come to me with these really weird ideas that they get from TikTok or YouTube or whatever. And they're like, hey, I do this. Can I just wrap my car and take 100% deduction for that? And I'm like, well, do you use your car for business? And they're like, no, but I saw that we could do that anyways. It's advertising, right? And I'm like, hey, let's do this. Let's see how much it'll save you. Can you get me your P&L or your income statement? And they're like, oh, yeah, I don't have that. And I'm like, okay. Before we get into the really complicated stuff, let's start with the basics, man.
Yeah.
Let's start with the fundamentals. Let's have a good foundation because I'm going to be honest, people that don't keep a monthly P&L or some of them don't even do quarterly, they're probably already missing out on deductions that they've paid for, but they just can't find them because they have to look through a year's worth of statements, to do that.
I used to be guilty of that. So
and it causes a lot more anxiety around tax season, right? So
I was just delaying all because that's why I hired you, because I hate doing my taxes. I don't like numbers. I'm a creative, so when I look at a spreadsheet, my eyes just cross and everything goes blurry, and I start to just go, oh, where's my camera? And so I just hate doing that. So I would just put it off, and then I would, early April, I would find a day and I would just treat myself. I would go to like my favorite restaurants or my favorite breweries, and I'd bring my computer and I would just sit there and just bang it out spend the whole day. Usually it would take me 2, but I had to like trick myself into like treat myself. And then when I was done, I'd be like, I'm going to treat myself to go do something really fun. So that's the only way I could get through it. So now I don't have to do that anymore. I just give it to you.
Yeah, that's great advice though, right? So I wanted to learn Spanish. Okay, I made a New Year's resolution. I'm going to learn Spanish. I thought I could learn a whole language in a year, so it didn't work out.
If you were submerged, you probably could.
Yeah, and not in Castle Rock, Colorado.
No.
I cannot. So, and I was struggling with. I have an app, and I was struggling with when I was doing it. I was like, "Oh, I'll do it for lunch." Something came up. Oh, I'll do it at night before I go to bed. Didn't watch TV instead.
Right.
And so I listened to this guy, Darren Hardy, who's got a book called The Compound Effect, and he talks about, if you're trying to do something, link it to a habit that you already do. And so I started practicing my Spanish with my morning cup of coffee, because I have that whether I'm on vacation, whether it's the weekend, it doesn't matter. And so I was able to create a consistent habit doing that. So what you were saying about, hey, once a month, I'm going to go treat myself. And when I do that, I update all of my P&L information is a great piece of advice of, kind of, attaching those two habits together.
Yeah.
And because you
Makes it
want to
less
go
painful.
out.
Yeah.
You want to go out. So, okay, if I want to do that, then I'll just do this while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And it's done. It's over with. And that no longer lives rent-free in your brain for
Which is
months.
nice. Yeah. Yeah, I would just pick a different brewery and just go and knock it out and try different beers. And that was,
Yeah.
Are there any, you mentioned this earlier about this is something that they would train you at Liberty Tax. Are there any big 2024 changes that people need to know about?
There is something going through Congress right now. And I'm going to be honest, I don't usually pay attention to those until they're actually solidified.
Sure, yeah.
Because what happens is there's a bunch of speculation around it, and I just feel like that is a waste of energy at this time.
Yeah.
The big one that I've been telling all my clients is that the Tax Cut and Jobs Act took place in 2018. And a lot of the corporate cuts were permanent, but a lot of the things associated with individual tax returns were set to expire in 2025.
Okay.
So before 2018, a lot of people itemized because we had interest and we had taxes that we paid, and we were able to itemize our deductions to reduce our taxable income. Well, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act wanted to make that easier, which I feel like it did accomplish that. They said, we're going to double the standard deduction. And so now over maybe 60% of the people that were itemizing before no longer have to itemize. And maybe even more than that.
Save a ton of time.
80%.
Yeah.
And so now
I was surprised
that
that we tried to itemize and it didn't make sense. It was like, just do the standard. It's like, okay, well, that's fine then. That's way easier.
Yeah. Not only that, but if you think about it, it's better if you spend $10,000 in what normally could be itemized, but you're allowed to deduct $27,000. Well, you had $10,000 going out of your pocket, but you get to reduce your income by $27,000. If you had $35,000 of expenses, well, you get to reduce your income by $35,000, but you spent all that money.
Yeah.
So you're actually better off with the standard deduction.
Yeah.
It's easier. There's less money out of your pocket in general.
You get to keep that 35.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So I tell people all the time, don't spend $1 to save 30 cents.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to go out and, spend well, if I pay more in interest, then I could take that as a tax deduction, right? I'm like, yeah, but you spent more in interest. You saved a third of what you spent. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Let's just keep that money. And, you pay.
There are times where it makes sense. I think you and I talked, and one thing you mentioned was, go through your softwares, and can you pay any for your software annually before the end of the year? Right. Switch it from monthly to annually, or just re-up it. I was like, okay, yeah, cool. And I went and paid for a bunch of software that, was able to reduce my income, and so things like that. There are some things that make a lot of sense, but just to go spend money just to try and not have to pay the taxes is kind of silly.
Yeah. So for you, a camera at the end of the year could make a lot of sense because, let's say the camera costs $5,000, but if you spend that money, you get to save $2,000 on your taxes. Now that camera only costs you $3,000. Now it's a deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So that in those cases, absolutely, it makes a lot of sense. But a lot of that standard deduction is set to expire in 2025. So people who aren't used to keeping that information over the past several years now may have to start keeping that again. So that's what I'm really looking at for.
Do you think they'll extend that? I mean, it's just speculation, but.
Even though I'm a tax preparer and I make more when the tax laws change because more people need my help.
Yeah.
They don't understand it, right? I'm of the frame of mind that it's frustrating that it's something that everybody has to do, but nobody can understand how to do it.
Yeah.
That aggravates me. If it's something that's required by everybody, it should be a lot simpler. So if it were my preference, I'd rather it stay simple, stay the way it is. And that way people can have some more consistency to their life, even though what happens in those situations, because I educate my clients and some of their returns are pretty straightforward, they end up using me for 1 year and then leaving and doing it on their own. And I actually like that.
That's okay.
That's okay with me, because now that person isn't spending more money than they have to get this done, right? If I made it easy for them, accomplishment, total accomplishment. I'm okay with that.
That is a good attitude to have. That's probably a better attitude than I would have about that. But but I understand your point. You enhance their life, right? And so if that's the goal, if that's like the heart of your business, then that's what better way than someone doesn't need your service. You made their life so much better that they don't even need you anymore. So
yeah, and I would rather them say, "Hey, my return's easier, so I could do it on my own." That's fine. The people that I would then get more of is, hey, I've decided I want to start a business, and now I need your help. Hey, I decided to get a rental property, and now I need your help.
Gotcha.
Hey, I opened this brokerage account.
They did something to make their life more complicated, and they come back. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're generating more wealth for themselves, and so then I become more valuable to them. And so I would much rather see my clients saying, hey, instead of just doing it on my own and kind of working for the man and keeping the status quo, I'm going to kind of get out there and figure out how to generate more wealth for myself. And by doing that, I'm going to need a tax preparer that knows what they're doing.
Cool. That's awesome. Most of your clients are pretty straightforward. Like you said, married, busy parents. What are the odds of like one of your clients getting audited? I think that's everyone's greatest fear in life is like dying and then getting audited by the IRS. So like, what are the actual odds of that? Does that happen often? And how do you handle that? I
haven't had any of my clients audited. None. But wow. I've been doing pretty low volume for the past since 2018. My clients are very low audit risk in general. I would say that high audit risk has to do with the earned income credit, and that's lower income individuals. Okay. And I don't do a lot of those. A lot of mine are going to be, upper middle class type. When you have multiple businesses that are all showing losses, then that
big red flag.
Yeah, but I don't really like dealing with those because I'm like, okay, listen. Is this worth your time? If you're losing money every year, is this
3
really
years in a
worth your
row?
time?
How are you still in business?
Not only that, but you're paying me now extra to do your tax return. You're just spending money. Just go out to dinner instead. And so I don't really deal a lot with. I think I kind of put those people off a little bit.
Sure.
They're like, hey, can I keep writing this off? Can I keep taking it? And I'm like, dude, is it really worth your time? And that's not what they want to hear.
Yeah.
They want to hear, oh yeah, we should write off more.
Yeah.
And so I would say that my clients aren't at a huge
Let's see if we can get you a refund.
Right. Let's see if we can manipulate. Let's show zero income this year so you don't have to pay taxes. But next year when you apply for a loan, let's show a lot of money. And it's like when people come to me and say, I need to show more money this year. I'm like, wait, what?
Well, did you make more money?
What do you mean show more money? Show me how your business
you're just making up numbers, putting them in the boxes.
I steer away from those. Those people don't like me too much. I'm too blunt for them and tell them that's a waste of my time. So.
Well, good for you.
The ones that I really like that are, they're starting their businesses, they work full time and they want to do something part time. Usually it's a hobby.
Yeah.
And helping them figure out okay, how do we make this profitable? How do we make this grow to a point where you want it to be? It doesn't have to be massive, but grow to. And then we really associate what's the cost of that? What is that costing you in time and money as far as taxes and expenses to do? And then they make the decision that works for me. And now I'm writing off my home and now I'm writing off my car in legitimate ways.
Yeah.
And I'm putting more money in my pocket, but I can still kind of reduce my average tax.
I mean, I've been doing this I've had my business for 12 years now and full time for, 9, something like that, 8, 9. And even just our conversations this year, I learned new things and you helped me discover a few, like the accountable plan, things like that. I was like, oh yeah, never knew about that. No one's ever told me that before. And we're able to, really helped me, and I've been doing this for 10 years. So it's been great.
Plenty of perfectly legitimate ways to have a thriving business.
And then you can sleep good at night, not worrying that the IRS is going to come knocking on your door, right? So that's not what I want. I'm not trying to save an extra $20 and not be able to sleep at night. So
right. And I mean, you can look at that kind of additional tax of not operating within the gray as a little bit of insurance on not getting audited. And I tell my clients all the time that if you're ever audited, because you could be audited randomly.
Sure.
You know, I could say, hey, you're working for this corporation that's being audited, and now they decided to audit the people that are working for that company. So through no fault of my own or what you're doing, you can be audited. We want to be in a situation where we could slap down the documents on the table and say, there you go, have a nice day.
Yeah.
In addition, I do provide, audit insurance. So every one of my tax returns has audit protection with it and identity theft protection and all of that. So, there's that extra, because I don't want to do the audit. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Think about how much time that's going to take up. And then I'd have to tell my client, like, now you have to pay my billable rate.
Yeah.
Because through no fault of either of us, you're getting audited. So I'm like, I'll just pay for the insurance to get it on there. And now if anything happens, not only do you have the protection, but because of the way that we've kept documentation and filed the return, we're confident that even if we are audited, we'll say, see you later.
Here it is. We're going to go get lunch. Call us when you're done. Yeah.
After they look at the 10th receipt, that we had available for them, then it's like, okay, how much more time are you going to waste? Like, this is 100% legit.
Mm-hmm. One thing I've noticed about working with you and just through our conversations, oftentimes you'll say, oh, I just got back from a conference, or I just did this training, just, bought some new software. I feel like furthering your education is something that's really important to you. Why is that so important to you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I said earlier, I didn't even go to high school, man. And now I chose a profession where I have to constantly educate myself.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I doing here? Like,
well, I just think it's really cool that you're always, it seems like you're always doing trainings and conferences and trying to just get better in those margins,
it's easier because I'm interested in it, right? I'm really interested on how it's going to affect my clients. And I think that there's actually something beyond that. When you're in a class with people and you're all kind of learning together, being self-employed, like, we're so lone wolf all the time, right? So if we go to the conferences or we join a mastermind group or we have education, then that gives us a chance that we don't get in like a corporate, or that we usually would get in a corporate job. Yeah. To interact with other people that are in the same industry and, think similarly and have, ideas about how to make the profession better. So that's why I do it. And I make it's a pretty big line item on my budget to make sure that I get proper education. I just hired a business coach because the mastermind group that I'm a part of, they're all tax preparers. Right. And so we've all been trained kind of the similar way, you know, and we all have like these industry biases. But a business coach is going to bring people from other industries to hold a class. And now I'm learning from somebody that, hey, how do you do customer service in your industry? Okay, how do you do it in your industry? How do you do deliverables in your industry? And I think that looking outside the tax industry is going to give you greater perspective on how to better serve your clients, opposed to just, hey, that's how we do it. So let's just keep doing it
this way. It's how it's always been. What do you mean you want to do it better?
It's profitable this way. Why do you got to change it?
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. Just do it this way. It's profitable. It's like, yeah, I know, but it's not fun. I mean, and
it could be better. It's painful when you have to do a process that could be better.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it bugs me. This kept me up at night the other day. I was thinking, how long would it take me if you're a single individual and you only have one W-2? How long would it take me to get that tax return process? And because of my workflow and all the steps that I have in my process, it fits well for the clients that I work with, but it doesn't fit really well for that single. So they go to TurboTax, so they file it for free online. And I'm thinking, man, if I could get that down to like 5 minutes. Yeah. Would people use that service? Would they decide, hey, yeah, I'll pay for it because I get it done in 5 minutes, going home, buying TurboTax, downloading it, entering the information, wondering if it's right. It's actually better for me to do this. And so, and that's not even like my target market, but it's just like, how can I make that better? I mean, can I make the simplest returns better?
Yeah.
You know, like how can
It's good to ask those questions. Even if the answer is no, it's like at least you're exploring them.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes the job fun.
Finding like pain points in the marketplace and going, all right, how can I make this less painful? How can I solve this problem for them? And I mean, that's what business is, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And there's so much trauma around taxes. I've had people that get refunds that file extensions and wait until October. And I'm like, dude, you're getting a refund. Fat refund. Like, we should have filed this in February.
Yeah.
But there's just so much trauma around getting it done and filing it.
Especially if you're like me and you're not a numbers person. It's just painful just sifting through all this. You're like, I don't want to, I don't know what any of these documents mean. Yep. You'll hit me with something, give me your 104730B. And I'm like, I will Google that and spend 5 minutes doing it. And if I can't find it in 5 minutes, then it's going to get buried in my inbox until you bug me for it again. So, if it takes me more than 5 minutes, that's good luck. So.
People told me when I was talking to them about my target market, like, most of those people could just use TurboTax. Most of those people could just file for free. Why would they need you? And I'm realizing more and more that people like having somebody like me, even though it's simple from my perspective, it's not for theirs, and they worry about it, you know, and they especially when the laws change and they're like, last year, I got this much back and this year I'm only getting this much back. And now they have to research it and figure out why. And it's just even something simple, even though they got it right, there's that stress and there's that, anxiety there.
That's a great segue. I have a couple more parts we can wrap this up. I wanted to tell you sort of like my conclusive review of your services and why I continue to use you. And we can snip this and give it to you if you want. But so a couple of the things that I love about working with you is that you talk on my level. I don't ever feel like you make me feel stupid. I ask stupid questions, but you don't make me feel stupid for asking them. So I think that's like so nice because if you just Google something, you're going to get the IRS website, which is just like, jargon. And and it's just tax lingo. And you're able to like take that and distill it into a videographer's mind. You know what I mean? You're like, let me dumb this down for you so that you can understand it. And I even mentioned, I was like, yeah, well, you're smarter than me. You're like, I'm just smarter in different ways. You're smarter than me in a lot of other ways. So I love that you're available for me. So like text, email, Zoom call. If you're not instantly available, you respond in a very reasonable amount of time, within a day or two, you always answer my questions and thoroughly. And so just having someone available who can like ease your mind, you don't have to like go to sleep stressing about this thing. You're like, don't worry about that. We'll figure that out next, or whatever. It's like, that's huge for me. It's worth the expense. I think your prices are very reasonable. And I think to me, it's just worth that peace of mind when I'm stressed about something or can't find something, I can just ask you and you can put me at ease. So that's great. You take the headache and the anxiety out of the equation. Cause could I use TurboTax? Yeah, I used to. But like it got more and more complex as I got older and my business grew and I got employees. Like it just got more and more complex and I just never felt confident about it. I always worried that I did something wrong or that I left out some big thing that was going to cost me thousands of dollars. Right. And so I think you also save me money. So like that's huge for me because it's like you pay for yourself. Yep. It's like, why? Absolutely. It's a no brainer, especially for someone like me who has a business. It's like, it's just a no brainer. So yeah, if you're a busy parent and you have any sort of like, if you don't have like the easiest return in the world, then I think David is a great solution for you. So David's your guy. We can land this plane. I always like to end it with just kind of something fun so people can know a little bit more about you. Some rapid fire questions. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. If you were an animal, what would you be?
I have to say turtle. Turtle's my spirit animal.
Just slow and steady.
Yep.
Well, that wins the race apparently. So.
And they just seem like they're enjoying their life so much.
They're just hanging out.
They're hanging out. Yeah. They're doing their thing. They're living to 140 years old or however long they live.
Oh yeah, sea turtles live forever.
That would be it for me.
Cool. Good answer. If you could listen to like one band, if you could only listen to one band or artist for the rest of your life, who would that be?
Not really big into music.
Okay.
You know what? if I had to one song
Okay, you
for the
got one
rest of
song?
my life, it would probably be Hotel California.
Oh, that's a good one. All right.
Yeah, it talks a lot about, where am I? Am I getting to the place that I need to be? And then once you land there, is it really the right fit for what you want to do?
Cool. That's a good answer. What is the worst fashion trend that you ever participated in? Did you ever do the double popped collar polo?
Heck no.
Collar? Okay.
Heck no, man. I've been stuck
Puka shells.
in the same fashion trend since, I don't know, since I was 18 years old.
All right.
I don't change very much. My wife would say my mullet phases that I go through like every 3 years.
Mullets were back for a little bit. I think they're gone now, but they were back for a while.
Yeah, man, I can grow a killer mullet.
Okay.
So,
I need to
every
see
now and
that.
then I'll do that.
I think you should just do that then. Call it mobile mullet tax.
Yeah, mullet tax.
Mullet tax.
Mullet tax services.
All right. Death row, last meal. What are you choosing?
This is funny. This was actually the icebreaker I gave to my team. The other
Okay,
day.
yeah. So you got a good answer then.
Oh, it's going to be a big old fat steak.
Okay.
With some asparagus and maybe some bacon mac and cheese.
Ooh, all right. That's good. Good option. What are you drinking?
Oh, beer, amber for sure. So
Okay.
I'm either going to go with, like a Fat Tire or, Avalanche or something
Meat and
like that.
potatoes kind of guy. I like that.
Yeah, man.
Cool. And then you mentioned a book earlier, but is there like one book that you would like recommend to that everyone should read?
Yeah, the one that I read when I was deciding that I'm going to go full time was called Built to Sell.
Okay.
Super easy read.
Okay.
And it talks about a big problem that a lot of us self-employed people. It's very similar to the the E-Myth, where we think we're starting a business, when in reality we're just working in a different business that we've created. And it talks about how to build and systemize your business in a way that when you finally want to depart that business, it's actually worth something. And a lot of tax businesses are only worth their billables for a year or whatever it may be. So you dump years and years into this business, and then when you go to sell it, you've got a year's worth of pay afterward.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't sit right with me. And so I'm really trying to follow this model, this built to sell model, as I'm building my business, and think, okay, how do I sell as many units as possible? How do I set up systems and people in a way to where this business can operate without me?
Yeah.
And so that book made a big
If it can operate without you, you can sell it or not sell it. Then.
Right.
Yeah.
My hope is to duplicate it.
Okay.
Because I don't feel like there's
franchise
a lot
it?
of options. Yeah, I'd love to franchise it. If people like this service and it works well in Castle Rock, it could work well in Parker. It could work well in Highlands Ranch.
Yeah.
And I really feel like a lot of people are craving another option.
Yeah.
The biggest innovation to the tax industry was TurboTax.
Just 30 years ago or something.
Yeah, and it's funny that they're like, oh, do it yourself. And then a few things change in the tax law, and they're like, oh, get a tax preparer online with you to do it. And I'm like, wait, I thought this was
Even when I used TurboTax, I would have to chat with them like 100 times to ask questions. So.
Right. So they and I think that this is just a better way to do it. And you mentioned earlier that you think my prices are reasonable, and people have been telling me raise your prices. I did raise my prices this year because I added Protection Plus.
What?
Yeah,
Oh, God.
I let people pay with credit card now.
Okay.
I've done some things to make it more convenient. So I brought more value when I raised my prices. I don't like the idea of just raising my prices because everybody else is doing it. Right. So if I can make this efficient, then I can continue to provide that good service at a low cost and pay my people well and do what I need to do.
Win-win. Win-win for everyone.
Absolutely.
All right, last time, tell us where people can find you. Where do you want people to go to hit you up?
Yeah, the Facebook is always good.
Okay.
So mobile tax, and if you go to my website, that's really good. So mobiletaxfiler.com. Okay. And there you can schedule a consultation. So I qualify all my clients before I onboard them. So you could schedule a 15-minute call there.
Okay.
hey, even though this is going to air after the tax season, I'm taking new clients.
Yeah.
So, if you didn't file an extension and you still need your taxes done, or if you're going to be looking for somebody for next year, definitely reach out and you can still schedule that onboarding call.
Perfect. Yeah. And you have more availability after the 15th. So that's
Absolutely.
even better.
Absolutely.
Well, David, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
Good to chat.
I appreciate you too, man.
All right. Take care.
You too.